The Nuggets get cooked in LA by James Harden and the crew. The defense is atrocious. There's some scheme stuff to talk about. There's some rotation stuff to talk about. There's some effort stuff to talk about. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day and being with us Monday through Friday, being an everyday or hanging out with us on youtube.com/Locked On Nuggets or wherever you get podcasts. We do appreciate the 5-star reviews. It'd be a great Christmas gift for us. Give us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts. That would be awesome. And give us a like and subscribe. On today's show, we'll talk about the not disaster. It was a bad game. It wasn't a disaster. Like, they didn't get obliterated, right? It wasn't the Knicks game. The disappointing result in LA, first game back from the holiday, and the Nuggets just do not show up on defense. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll talk about some of the rotation decisions. AG's back. That's awesome. All that and more on today's show. I do want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt Moore. You can check me out on Twitter at HP Basketball. I have some exciting stuff coming for Nuggets fans on Monday, so you should check that out. And I'm joined by Ryan Blackburn from Mile High Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at NBA Blackburn. And please go check out the Pick, Axe, and Roll podcast, where Ryan will talk more about how annoyed he is with this game, because I don't think Ryan likes the Clippers. He definitely doesn't like Norman Powell. He definitely doesn't like foul baiters. And I don't think he likes the Nuggets losing to this team in particular.
This team's just, it's the worst to lose to, because you can see the formula playing out right before your eyes, and they do it better than just about anybody. Where it's James Harden, it's Norman Powell, it's guys with high pick and roll. They're going to space the floor. They're going to try to generate as much space as possible. And if you get into their airspace, they are going to flop and flail. And it's going to be brutal. It's going to be really tough for a Nuggets team that is undisciplined and unserious.
You're big on the unserious thing tonight. What? So this team is like, this is a good team that they lost to. Like, this is a good team at home. They're over 500. They've been competitive in all these games. James Harden is back to being James Harden, or at least a slightly lesser, but still mostly version of himself. Why did you feel like this game was unserious, Ryan?
Because they went down in the first quarter by double digits again. Because they knew exactly what the game plan for this Clippers team was going to be, and they didn't really, like, of the things that Denver tried changing up, nothing really stuck, nothing really worked. And then when Denver actually did work themselves back in, they played some solid defense during the middle of this game. They finally got out and ran. They did the things that the coaching staff asks them to do night in and night out, and then they shut it down in the middle of the third quarter defensively. Like, they just shut it down. They didn't execute anything beyond that, and I'm just sick and tired of watching it, if I'm being honest. I think that there are so many things that I can point to about this group, and just all up and down, people needing to take responsibility, people needing to do a little bit more, and how the excuse is going to be, it's game 18 of the season. I've seen enough. I know who this team is.
Wow. Ryan really hates them losing the Clippers. So I get being frustrated within the course of, like, it's not this game, it's all the games this season. This one feels a little bit different to me in a number of ways. They did, I felt the competitiveness was there after the slow start on the road, which I want to talk about very specifically what happened there. They dug their way back into it. They went up 83-73, and that's when that third quarter little hit. And that was honestly the Strawther minutes is what happened, is like, then Strawther comes in and they started trying the naked doubles on Harden. And that's a very unfortunate phrasing with Harden's preference of nighttime activities. But like, when you just send two guys blatantly at him, that is not how you cover this. So yeah, I want to start here from a effort perspective, let's do the tactical stuff in the second, and then we'll talk about AG being back on the third. Okay. So from an effort perspective, this to me, I will say that this is my big takeaway. Okay. Everyone's trying to figure out, why do they start slow? Why do they start slow? Why do they start slow? And people are like, it's the coach. He doesn't have them prepared. He should have them rah, and give a motivational speech. No, this is not that. This is the NBA. The problem to me is that this team does not want to play basketball together. There is a chemistry thing, a vibes thing, and energy thing. And whether it's like, well, I want to play basketball with you, just not until April. Like when we're through the regular season, I want to play basketball with you. Or it's just like, this is stale and we've been together a long time, because Jokic, Murray, AG, MPJ have been together a long time. Like, we're coming up on 2025. The AG trade was 2021. Like, we're talking 4 years that they've spent together. Now, they've only played together for 2 because of the injuries, but like they've been around each other like a long time. Okay. Peyton's been there for what now? 3 years?
Yep. Third year.
Same. Christian's been there 3 years, right? There are some new guys, but really the only guy in the rotation is Russ. They do not come out with like a like, it is so much fun to play together. They come out with a vibe of like, all right, here we go. Game 17 of 82. And then we can start playing real basketball again. And until they get to a point where they actually like playing together again, like, this is what you're going to get. And if you're like, you're a professional, you should play harder. I don't disagree, but this is like a very common thing that you see happen. And you need someone to change that vibe, that change that energy. And that's what I think I've been trying to hint at, whether it's Jokic or Murray or whoever. And it's what Malone was talking about when he said, I need my leaders to take accountability. Someone's going to have to be like, you got to be the change that you want to see in your basketball team. And it's going to have to be a collective thing, but it's going to have to start with one of them getting back to them wanting to play together, because right now they are going through the motions. And when you go through the motions versus teams that are enjoying playing together, like the Clippers, this is what happens: is you dig a 10-point hole.
I think that Jokic is fed up of carrying everything. That's my overall assessment here at this point. I think that Jokic has been fed up with this for a while. He's willing to do it because he is responsible. He's an adult. He knows his responsibility. He approaches everything the same way every single time. But when you ask, like, all right, who needs to lift them up in the first quarter? Who needs to like get the group going? Who needs to facilitate everything? Like, hey, this should be fun for everybody. It's Jamal. Jamal needs to like.
He's never been fun though. He's not a fun guy.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Is that I just think everybody's kind of like, hey, the joy's not here and the fire's not here. And there was one guy that used to bring that joy and that fire for a long time. And right now, I just don't think that it's very fun for a lot of people. And like, Jamal doesn't take a whole bunch of shots right now. He's only took 12 tonight. I don't think that his offense actually was that bad, other than there were a couple turnovers in the first quarter that I would argue with. But he's just not like really trying to do the things that he was doing before. Like, just kind of going through the motions of what the offense was, what the offense is supposed to be. And things just feel different.
When I went back and rewatched, it was like Jamal found some shots. That was what it felt like. He found some shots. He also had 2 air balls off of trying to create something. Like, Jamal's entire thing is like being a tough shot maker. And every time that he gets in that spot now, it is dispiriting watching him try and create the shots that he's supposed to, that he normally was so good at.
Yeah.
Like,
he just can't create
when he's finding pretty good shots, like, it's fine. But I also think that like Don't Tell Santa Cruz is in here, as he always is, saying about how like it's entirely all Murray's fault, and that's just not accurate.
Correct.
Murray, however, had his problems. I want to talk about the schematic stuff, because if you're listening to this and you're like, come on, they've been playing together. Like, I'm like, look, there is an ephemeral problem with their vibe, and that is very evident. That also doesn't mean that they don't have tactical issues. And if you want to talk tactics, we'll do that next here on Locked On Nuggets. It's wintertime, which means it's about getting cozy. I was always just like, I wore like a t-shirt and a jacket, and then moved to Colorado. And after so many years here, I've reluctantly embraced layers. And so the other day I had on like 4 nice, really good layers and was able to go outside and go for a walk. And that was really nice. And then come back and the fire's on and like the wife's decorating for Christmas. It's just like, it's as much as I dislike winter because I have seasonal affect disorder, I really like early winter, which is November and December. Like, you know, kids having hot chocolate, warm coffee in the mornings next to the fire. That stuff's awesome. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or watching a movie with family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out the brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Monday for No Jinx, talking about the Nuggets' loss to the Clippers. All right, let's talk some X's and O's. So here is where they got off to the wrong foot defensively, and I am not kidding. I've just done the clips. I put them on Twitter. Go check the tape. Nikola Jokic, not kidding. If you're going to play 2-on ball, I've been yelling about this for years. Jokic, when he was 23, 24, 25, 26, when they would put him at the level of a ball screen, he would attack it. He would get up into the guy, make himself big, shut off of those lanes. And that helps the guard to recover, do the same thing. You wall him off. With Harden, this is the thing with James. James doesn't force anything. I know Harden's game extremely well from the time that I've spent covering his MVP seasons. I have watched an ungodly amount of his foul baiting nonsense. I also know how good he is. But one of the things that's definitely true, if you apply pressure correctly with 2-on ball, Harden doesn't break it. He resets. He calls for the guard to come up. He gets the ball to him, and then he gets it back, and he tries to execute again, or he attacks the ISO. And usually by that time, given how patient James is, you're already at 6 on the clock. So he's going to go to an ISO step back, and that is the best that you can really hope for. Okay? Now, when they tried that early, and Jokic did not commit at the level of the screen. So it was easy bounce pass underneath the zoo. You bring the low man over, kick to the corner, Norman Powell scores. They do it again, same sequence. It's Derrick Jones Jr. He cuts underneath. It's a dunk. If you make that pass easy, it's now 4-on-3, and that is going to be easy every time. Zoo is good enough to make that play almost every single time. So then in the second quarter, Jokic actually comes back in and starts executing a little bit more. Like he gets up into it. And guess what? It slows them down. So now Harden's got to go to the guard screens. He's going to go, all right, if you're going to do this, I'm not going to involve Jokic. I'm just going to go switch hunting. And this is the other problem with Denver is that they give up the switch too easy. And so Harden is targeting Michael Porter Jr. He's going at him. He's targeting Jamal, and he's going at him. He's targeting Julian Strawther in the third quarter, which, by the way, that should never, ever happen. You should do everything possible to keep Julian from getting that switch. He's torturing that matchup. If you give him that switch, Harden's going to attack it every single time. So what does Denver start doing? They start blitzing with the wings and the guards. MPJ and Jamal actually executed several times, getting good pressure. And guess what Harden does? Again, resets, and that's how they build that 10-point lead. But then you start getting a little bit too anxious about it because he's going at Julian, because Julian's on a lineup with Julian and Jamal on the floor with MPJ. And in those situations, you have 3 minus defenders on the floor. And now you can't hide effectively. And so he's just going at Julian. So now the Nuggets start sending the naked double. And when you start doing that and you're giving Harden that space, he's just going to back up and he's just going to pass over the top of you or to the side, and now you've got wide open sequences for open threes. That's how you generate all these open threes. Denver's scheme has got to be dependent on not giving up threes, and in this matchup, it's very difficult. Do you know the easiest way for you to be able to actually contain three-pointers?
What?
It's drop coverage. That's the best way to do it. You play drop coverage, and you tell your guys, stay home. We're going to give up the two-man game here, but we're going to stay home. But with Harden, you can't do that because he is a monster with it. And with Zoo, he will tear you to pieces. It will be Jokic will play slightly over. They'll try and ice it. He'll do a bounce pass and Zoo will dunk it. Like it'll be that almost every single time. So the Clippers are a tough matchup in that regard. But if you're going to play at the level, you had better play absolutely to the wall, to the edge. Now, if you're sitting here and you're going, Matt, Jokic had a triple-double and Jokic was awesome offensively. He's awesome every single game offensively. And if you want to say the Jokic should not have to play defense because of how good he is offensively, I don't agree with you, but that's pretty standard in the NBA. And they do need to add another wing to be able to defend. Like, you're going to have to get good defender. You can only have 2 weaknesses. You can't have 3. And right now, the Nuggets, because of the way the roster is built with Jokic, MPJ, and Jamal on the floor at the same time, they have too many weaknesses with guys that can't cover for him. Christian does his job fine, even though he can't navigate screens at all. But they do not have guys that make up for them. And that is the key problem with their scheme right now.
Good stuff. Very good stuff. Bravo. I agree with everything that you said. And it leads to some very uncomfortable conversations, of course. You and I have butt heads about Strother, of course. I'm willing to kind of concede on that one, and that he needs to continue to play. The Nuggets need to continue to develop an offensive player, even if he has defensive deficencies. There's no doubt about that.
I just want to stop real quick, just because I want to make sure what my position is here.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is just don't blame a second-year guy who didn't play at all last year for making the same mistakes that everybody of his type makes.
Sure.
There was a sequence where Julian's so worried about the strong side action, and Russ is telling him, like, hey, you have to get back. And Julian's like, yeah, I know, but like, and by that time the corner pass is made, and now he's trying to make that rotation. You can't expect Julian to play tag the roller. You cannot ask that kid to do that. Learning that timing sequence of how to tag the roller and recover in the NBA, and how to get your conditioning and your closeout to a level that if you're not a great defender to start with, that takes years. It's really difficult. My only thing is, don't blame Julian for being this awful defender when it's like, yeah, of course he's an awful defender. That he's being leveraged as a pressure point because of the Nuggets scheme. And that's not fair to point to him. If it was just Julian, stay home on your shooter, Julian can do that. Julian's not getting beat that way. Jamal got beat backdoor twice, which was not great. But like, Julian's mistakes are all stuff that I'm like, of course he makes that mistake. He's like, with where he's at in his career.
Look,
the problems are with other guys.
He did also get beat backdoor tonight, but I'm not going to berate the point. Like, the most important thing for Denver right now is that Jamal played 37 minutes, Mike played 31, and they're just not going to win with those guys playing at this level right now. Like, that's the thing. That's where this all kind of comes back down to. You talked about having several defensive weaknesses on the floor. Murray has gone from, like, there are times where he can play the passing lanes reasonably well. This was not the night. It was and like, Michael Porter's defense tonight was also incredibly weak and pretty lazy in the second quarter. And then there were some times where it broke, but like, he also had a couple of moments to your point.
I mean, look, I'll also say this. Jamal got beat straight downhill twice. He got beat backdoor twice.
Yep.
But also, Jamal's a better screen navigator than Christian Brown. He is. He just is. If you actually notice, go back and watch. See how often the Harden actually attacked Jamal in pick and roll situations with Jokic, because he knew that they knew how to execute it correctly. He didn't actually go to that much. And it's a two-way thing of, that's not a really ideal because they're pretty good. It's also, why would I do that when I have all these other things I can do? Right. And like, that doesn't change the fact of like Jamal getting blown by with no backside rim protection. That's also, by the way, not like all that uncommon, is that like your guy in Jamal's position just have to have backside protection. But this is also one of the combos I think that's getting pretty, this is one of the questions that we had. I remember, because I'm writing a bunch of stuff about when I've like this, how long I've been covering the Nuggets. Like, one of the things I remember thinking about was like, can you ever really build a championship defense with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic? And they did. But they had to put Aaron Gordon and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and get a phenomenal season for Michael Porter Jr. around them. And they were Bruce also Brown. Able, I want to make this like really, really essential point. They were able to deploy KCP and Bruce Brown at times around them. And then to a certain degree, Christian too, where it was like, you could have KCP and Christian, or KCP and Bruce Brown, or Bruce Brown and Christian. So you are always able to have, if you needed to in certain stretches of the game, you could have multiple plus defenders on the floor. The Nuggets are reaching right now to find lineups with multiple plus defenders on the floor. And that's a real problem. And it's one of the reasons why Like Christian's on-off differential is really good, even on the if we just narrow down to defense.
Right.
Like Christian's able to do his job. And even like the defense when Christian's on the floor is fine, even though like when I watch, I'm not able to find things that Christian's really doing systematically the way that KCP did. Like Christian's just good at like what his job is. But not having these other like these stretches of time that's where you're getting killed. Like you're getting murdered in the non-Christian Brown minutes. That's like a big part of this. You're getting murdered in the Jokic minutes worse, but you're also getting killed in the non-Christian Brown minutes. And that's a real problem that they've got to figure out. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they're just not going to happen this season because they don't have the trade assets to go get the wing that they need. But like that's what's missing is they need another guy. They just need another guy.
Or they need the main guys that they have to be better. Or you need to replace a main guy with a different main guy. Like that's kind of where I'm coming down to on this thing, man. Like I've seen what this looks like. I don't know where the actual internal improvement comes from unless it's from Julian Strawther, Christian Brown, and Peyton Watson. Like I don't see Jamal elevating his game back to where it was. I don't see Mike being much better than a third option kind of guy. And it's notable to me that on a night where Norman Powell comes back dealing with an injury, he puts up 28, which is just as much as any point total that Jamal or Mike has put up this season.
They ran third quarter during that run. Christian was defending Powell, and they just ran like a basic side pick and roll, and Jokic played drop off of Norman Powell because like the call was we're going to blitz Harden, play drop. And I'm like, what do you do? Like, what are you doing? Because Christian gets hung on the screen like he does, and it's a wide open 3-pointer pull up for Norman Powell. You cannot give him that look. Like you just can't. But like also
thing too. Like,
and like I'll also say this. As much as I'm like, if you're gonna play at the level, you got to engage more. If you're Jokic, like it is not reasonable to expect him to scramble as much as they're having to at this point in his career. And that to me may be like kind of the hidden story. If you're like, what happened? They were so good, and now ... I do think a lot of this is like you just can't ask Jokic to do all he does on offense. And then not only play defense, but play like a taxing, exhausting, high-intensity scheme. I don't think he can do it.
No. Nor should you be wanting to do it at game 18 of the season.
So, on the other side, AG's back, which is cool. He played backup 5, which Ryan was very excited about, and played very well. And I'm sure that there will be no consequences to doing this all the time down the line. We'll talk about that up next and more here on Locked On Nuggets. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. I have no idea how to bet this Browns-Broncos game. I have no idea. I have zero. I think like I did my power rating on it, and I actually have like Broncos by a little bit favored more than what the spread is, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess that they're if you're like they are the good version, then they should win this game by margin. I don't know. It's a really interesting game. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play data, and much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win with your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back here on Locked On Nuggets. Welcome back to Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. By the way, I'm gonna own all of the stuff that's going on with the Nuggets because when I said Aaron Gordon's their second best player, and now it's like that's just become true. Like that's just
screw you, man.
No jinx. No jinx. We don't call it no jinx for a reason. So AG comes back, plays really well, had a bunch of really good plays. In particular, like there were just sequences where you saw his weak side help a lot more when they tried to attack the rim. Like if they could just curtail the 3-point shots, Aaron's doing like as much as the paint defense was bad before he got hurt, it was so much worse after. And that helps a lot. So, I mean, AG, and then like, again, AG comes in off of the injury, missed so much time. And yet he comes in tonight and he gives them like really good minutes, and he winds up in this game, goes 10 points, 4 of 7, 1 of 2 from 3. So he keeps hitting the threes, 4 assists in this one. He was a -7 though, mostly because I think that first half stretch was kind of what killed him. And then he was on the floor, I think, for the end of that third where they made the run. What'd you see from AG in his first game back?
I saw some good signs. I saw him playing. I would say he's probably at like 90% capacity of what I would expect from him. Just like not as physical as you would hope on a consistent basis, not as like dynamic with the ball in his hands as he usually is, but he stood up to Ivica Zubac really well. He did some good things. He hit the three. There were a couple of times where he and Jokic connected under the rim. There was one dunk in particular that led to a timeout after a scramble situation. He just knows how to play. And it's nice to see him back there where you give a guy, you give him a little bit of athleticism. You give the backup center position a little bit of athleticism, somebody that's a little bit more dynamic than what Saric was providing on a consistent basis. He knows what to do better than Zeke, and he's just physically a little bit more capable than DJ at this point. He is their best backup center option, and yet you have to only use it choosingly. I thought it was very notable the Nuggets went to an 8-man rotation tonight, didn't even include Hunter Tyson or anybody of that regard, didn't include a backup center. They went with 8. And it's also why I'm so kind of low on this group right now, because they played a playoff rotation and they lost.
Malone kind of picks and chooses when he wants to tighten the rotation, right? It's not, we're going to play the same guys. So like Joe Mazzulla, it does not matter. Like he's just going to play the 12 dudes that he wants regardless of circumstance. And he did that before they won a title, and he's done it after. Malone is much more OKC, the Clippers, he'll do it. But one of the things that I disagree about with this, because I think for him, it's like, well, I'll get to like a deeper rotation when we face teams that we can be more comfortable versus. And I'm like, you don't have those. You went to overtime with the Raptors and the Nets. You're not going to have those. You don't get that. You do not have that luxury. So you better get comfortable with a 10-man rotation and just deal with it. Like you just better deal with it and just live with those minutes. And that's really bad. Like Calvin Booth was like, we have 9 real guys. Like that was a quote from Media Day. And that's wild for a GM to literally be like, I gave this team 9 guys.
It's wild.
And one of them is unplayable. And so now it's 8. And one of them is really, really bad and a young player defensively. So it's more honestly like 7. And like Tom Thibodeau gets in trouble for playing his guys when he has depth. Like he has other players he can go to, and he just doesn't. You can't blame Malone here for playing an 8-man rotation because it's like, I have no reason to think that like you can get away with Hunter Tyson in a game like this. You know,
they could have played Trey Alexander tonight, but he was in the G League, and the fact that they need him to get G League reps and that he's not quite ready for this kind of moment, not a great sign. They don't have enough guys. Like they just don't have enough players that they can consistently trust. Would be nice to have Justin Holiday right about now. That'd be pretty sick. I wonder what he's doing. I wonder where he's at right now.
Oh, how the turntables turn.
I've always been a Justin Holiday guy. Just want to make that clear.
That's impossible. He's over the age of 25, sir. That's impossible for you. Yeah, like I mean, they need another guy. Like that's absolutely like the case.
Where do you think?
A couple other things.
Like just I want to have like kind of large discussion right now. Where are they at in the West? Like right now, I think they're 9th on the season from a standings perspective. How many teams do you think that they can beat in a playoff series right now?
No, don't ask me that. Because like,
okay, let me rephrase. They can beat pretty much anybody, but would you expect them to beat OKC, Dallas, the Clippers? Okay. Like,
I would not expect them to beat OKC. I like the matchup for them, but I would not expect them to beat them. I would not expect them to beat Memphis. Memphis is really good. I would not expect them to beat Phoenix. Here's one. Would you expect them to beat Houston?
I would expect them to be that 6 seed that defeats the 3 seed Rockets because the Rockets are too young. But then I'm reminded that Fred VanVleet is still on that team and would probably just decimate everybody.
Dallas. Like the Golden State game Tuesday is interesting.
That'll be that's a matchup game. That's one where you kind of figure out, okay, who are we at this point? We already figured out we're not as good as the Clippers. Are we as good as the Warriors? That's the next step here.
And I also I think that the Warriors are kind of coming back down to earth a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think that their start was sustainable, and now it's like, oh no, they're no longer shooting 48% from the field from 3-point range. Oh no.
And opposing teams are also not shooting 31% against them.
I just think I still have them really high based off of power rating, which is more like a measure of their stats. And they've had a tough strength of schedule, but that's the West. And I'm not there's a lot in the comments of it's over. They won't make the playoffs. They're a first round out. And I'm just not there, because you can see that throughout the course of the game that they can play better. But I am just of the opinion, I'm just I don't know if they're going to find that without change. And I don't know what that change looks like. I think change is the catalyst that they need. I don't think that it's just going to suddenly happen. No. I think that they need a catalyst. And I don't know if that's a roster move or something else, but they need something.
Here's the thing. I believe in Jokic. I believe in Aaron Gordon and his fit next to Jokic. I believe in the developmental path of Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, even if they're not going to be ready by the end of this season, from a full perspective. I think that that's important for Denver to have at least a couple of guys that you can go to that provide energy and consistency and some level of explosiveness. For me, it just comes down to Murray and MPJ. I think that MPJ has been a very consistent scorer for this year. I just don't think he's a guy that you can consistently ask, hey, we need 25 from you. We need 30 from you. We need 35 from you. It's never, ever going to be who he is. And I think the Nuggets need somebody who can be there. We need 30 from you tonight kind of guy. And if it's not him, then it has to be Jamal. And right now with Jamal, it's all been very forward in terms of what we kind of expect and what we see from him on a consistent basis. He can get space and he can get shots against bad teams, against bad defenses. But the top 10 defenses, the OKCs, the Clippers, these different beasts of defensive teams, I just don't see it with him. I don't see him being able to get that clearance. And you need somebody who can do it at a high level. And I just don't think he can do it.
One final thing I want to talk about this, because this was really big in the game. The Nuggets after tonight's game fall to second in free throw attempts per game. They average the second most free throw attempts per game in the NBA. However, they are 26th in percentage.
They used to be fourth. I remember that distinctly, 12th, like 12 games in, 15 games in. They were still a pretty high percentage free throw shooting team. They now can't hit anything.
So if you look at the box score tonight, this is not hard. The Nuggets shot 58% from the field. Their offensive rating was really good, but they shot 58% from the field. However, the Clippers outgained them it had 8 more 3-pointers than them and went 22 of 27 versus 10 of 19 from the line. And even though the 27 to 19 is a big deal, you missed 9 free throws out of 19. You left so many points on the board. And it's to me, it's indicative of this team where it's you don't have the luxury of not taking care of the little things, and I think that there is a little bit of that left with them where they're we'll be fine. And it's not if you don't take care of it. You always talk about this, the championship habits, I'm just talking about good team habits.
Yeah. It's not even at that level at this point. You know who's shooting 62% from the free throw line this year?
Who?
Michael Porter Jr.
What a weird
23 of 37.
What a weird season. All right, that's got to do it for Locked On Nuggets. Swipe will be with you on Tuesday to give his thoughts on where the team is at. We will get you primed for the Warriors game. We'll have a post-game game after that one, as well as no Jinx. So make sure to check that out. Make sure to check out youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets for more. We'll see you guys again next time. Thanks for joining us here on Locked On Nuggets.